His favorite pastime was rolling around an English cast-iron cannonball, which was far too heavy for him to lift. Not that it stopped him from trying. Stubborn-faced, he'd brace his knees and strain. "Heave away, my jolly boys! Heave away, my bullies!" Lauritz shouted in encouragement, as he watched his youngest son struggling with it. The cannonball had come crashing through the roof of their house in Korskal during the English siege of Marstal in 1808, and it had put Lauritz's mother in such a fright that she promptly gave birth to him right in the middle of the kitchen floor. When little Albert wasn't busy with the cannonball, it lived in the kitchen, where Carolina used it as a mortar for crushing mustard seeds. "It could have been you announcing your arrival, my boy," Lauritz's father had once said to him, "seeing how big you were when you were born. If the stork had dropped you, you would have gone through the roof like an English cannonball." "Fingu," Lauritz said, holding up his finger. He wanted to teach the children the American language. Foot meant foot. He pointed to his boot. Mouse was mouth. He rubbed his belly when they sat down to eat. He bared his teeth. Hangre. They all understood he was telling them he was hungry. Ma was Mrs. Pa, Papa True. When Lauritz was absent, they said mother and father, like normal children except for Albert. He had a special bond with his father. The children had many names: Pickaninnies, Bullies, and Hearties. "Lie him, Thomas," Lauritz said to Carolina, and pursed his lips as if he was about to kiss her. She blushed and laughed, and then got angry. "Don't be such a fool, Lauritz," she said. In 1848, war broke out between the Danish crown and the rebellious Germans across the Baltic in Schleswig-Holstein, who wanted to cut their ties with Denmark. The old customs steward, de la Porte, was the first to know because the provisional insurgent government in Kiel sent him a proclamation accompanied by a request to hand over the customs coffers. All of Error was up in arms, and we immediately formed a home guard led by a young teacher from Riche, who from then on was known as the General. On the highest points of the island we erected beacons made of barrels filled with tar and old rope, attached to poles. If the German came by sea, we'd signal his approach by setting them alight and hoisting them up. There were beacons at Knesterbier, and on the hills by Weisness, and all around our coast, guards watched the horizon closely. But all this war business soon became too much for Lauritz, who never had much respect for anything to begin with. One evening, as he was on his way home from Eckenfjordefjord, he passed Weisness, where he neared the shore, and yelled, "The German is coming!" His voice rang out across the water. A few minutes later, the barrel at the top of the hill was set alight, then the one on Knesterbier, and the others followed all the way down to Sinusoy, almost 15 miles away, until the whole of Error was illuminated as on bonfire night. As the flames rose, Lauritz lay in his boat laughing his head off at the mayhem he'd caused. But when he reached Marstal, he saw lights everywhere and the streets teeming with people even though it was late evening. Some were shouting incomprehensible orders, others were whimpering and praying. A belligerent crowd was marching up Margel armed with scythes, pitchforks, and the odd gun, and terrified young mothers rushed around the streets clutching wailing babies, sure that the German would skewer them on his bayonet. By the well on the corner of Margel and Vestergel, a skipper's wife was arguing with a servant girl. The woman had got it into her head that they should hide in the well and was ordering the girl to go first. "After you, madam," the girl insisted. We men were ordering one another about as well, but there were too many skippers in our town for anyone to heed anyone else, so all we could agree on was a solemn vow to part with our lives only at the highest possible price. The upheaval reached the parsonage in Kirkestraat, where Pastor Zachariasen was entertaining guests. One lady fainted, but the pastor's 12-year-old son, Ludwig, grabbed a poker ready to defend his country against the advancing enemy. At the home of Mr. E.